Harley Quinn Season 5 Episode 5 hit our app screens this week with a brand new episode entitled Big Pasta Dinner. Now, I'm Cave Joel, and this is the video series where I give my thoughts and feelings on the episode that was, while also shouting out any comic book Easter eggs or references I can find. And let me tell you, this week had a lot of them, so without further ado, let's hop right on into it, shall we? Picking up from where last week left off, Harley is continuing to have horrible visions and nightmares regarding a giant skull chasing after her, no doubt implying that the brainwashing she suffered at the hand of Brainiac wasn't nearly as perfect as he believed. As is kind of in her character, Harley isn't exactly great when it comes to having negative emotions, and as such she has decided to channel those feelings into cleaning and updating her and Ivy's condo, including outfitting the couple's shower with the finest state-of-the-art black market dark web shower heads. Though that DIY project ends up getting all messed up by the return of Sean the Shark. Yes, that's right, King Shark's son has apparently run away from home and wants to hang out with his two cool queer aunts. And he really does stick around for the rest of the episode. I'll reiterate what I said before in regards to Sean, and that is you're either gonna love or hate his antics. Personally, I could take or leave him. At best, he's worth a couple good chuckles here and there, and at absolute worst, he does kind of remind me of Cousin Oliver and those late kid additions to long-running sitcoms. Hell, even his constant refrain of "I can't control myself" seems to be one half a parody of dumb TV catchphrases, and yet also maybe an earnest attempt to try and get a new catchphrase over. Really though, Sean is only here to serve as the inciting incident. After he messes up Harley's shower project, she has no choice but to go to the building's owner, Bruce Wayne, to see about getting it fixed. Of course, Bruce says that that's not the owner's responsibility, that's the building manager's responsibility, and wouldn't you know it, the building manager is actually none other than Alfred. Ah yes, Alfred, remember that hanging plot thread from last season? He desperately tried to get himself thrown into jail so he could be reunited with Bruce, only to have Bruce get out by the time Alfred finally got himself put into rich guy prison. Well, the show remembers this too and goes out of its way to try and rectify that by saying that Bruce couldn't be without his butler and just pulled some strings to get him released. In fact, this little exchange is actually a pretty good indication of what the rest of the episode is going to look like, as Big Pasta Dinner pretty much exists to try and rectify and tie up loose ends from season 4. Which, not to bury the lead on this one, I think they end up doing with some rather mixed results. Harley and Ivy get invited to the building's Big Pasta Dinner of the title, a party being thrown by Bruce for all the other tenants in the building, where they hope that they can corner Alfred and get him to do something about their shower. This leads to probably my favorite joke of the entire episode, where we find out that maybe only 10 people actually live in Bruce's big fancy condo building, and the rest of the units are actually owned by rich foreign businessmen who don't actually live in the city. Ooh, topical. Damian Wayne returns this episode too, spending some very awkward time with his father. You'll remember that Damian very much backed his mother Talia during the whole big implosion of the Bat family last season. For a second, I actually thought they had recast Damian, but nope, his actual child actor just hit puberty over the last few years. Apparently, Damian has been busy too, as a major C-plot throughout this episode is him breaking up with his girlfriend Raven via text, no doubt a reference to Raven of the Teen Titans team. Yeah, people really seem to like those two together, probably because of those latter-day DC animated films that tried them out as a ship. In fact, it's probably one of the few things they explored consistently during the dying days of those direct-to-streaming movies. By far, though, the biggest surprise dinner guest turns out to be none other than the Joker. His daughter apparently is actually a brand new intern at Wayne Enterprises, meaning that she was able to snag herself an invite, and also a pretty substantial redesign too, with her big brat's head. I was actually surprised to see them use the daughter in this context when we stop and consider that Joker had more of a story relationship with his adopted son, but then I was reminded, oh yeah, there's actually several characters in the DC universe who go by the moniker Joker's daughter, so maybe the show was actually priming the pump for them to do something with that in the future. Joker's daughter and Damian actually end up having a pretty fun C-plot too, where they slowly but surely end up falling for each other by the end of the episode. Though, now I'm kind of forced to admit Joker's inclusion in this episode does end up causing several rather glaring continuity snafus. For starters, how was the Joker here, period? At the end of the last season, didn't they heavily imply that Jim Gordon was either going to be torturing or killing the Joker? I mean, yeah, it's Jim Gordon we're talking about, and in this universe, he's not exactly great at anything, but I would have liked them him to at least mention it. Furthermore, shouldn't Batman and the others be more angry at the Joker for crippling Batgirl a la The Killing Joke near the end of last season? I mean, I guess Bruce was in jail, Damian was gone by then, but Harley was literally there when it happened. You'd think she would take some umbrage with all of this. Her and Barbara were friends, even if they did kind of nope their way out of the whole birds of prey thing. Oh, but there's more too. You see, during the dinner, Bruce goes over the history of some of his wards, how Dick Grayson died and how Jason Todd died, though the Joker seems completely ignorant about it, even though a couple seasons ago they had the big Joker Do musical number wherein the Joker recreated Jason Todd Robin's murder. I mean, I guess maybe the show's versions of events don't exactly line up one-to-one with the events of Death in the Family, and the show does try its best to wring some comedy out of the fact the Joker is closer to Batman and his family than ever before, yet seemingly does not know that Bruce is Batman, so I guess this is just a personal bugbear for me. Now, at the dinner, things end up getting quite heated between Alfred and Harley, and just when it looks like everything is going to boil over, the lights go out and Alfred ends up stabbed. And when the lights go on, Harley is left holding a bloody knife. Obviously, everyone jumps to their own conclusions, and the second part of this episode basically plays out like one of those parlor murder mysteries, with the extra added twist that Bruce doesn't actually believe that Alfred is dead. He just thinks that he's faking it because apparently he's a major drama queen who makes a big song and dance about faking his death every so often. Well, Ivy, on the other hand, isn't exactly 100% sure this just isn't another one of those instances where Harley did accidentally kill someone and then forget about it. I mean, hey, it wouldn't be the first time, right? Luckily, Sean being a shark, he has perfect night vision and actually ended up seeing the real culprit, a skull-faced man. Which, of course, only further plays into Harley's own repressed fears of her last run-in with Brainiac. Luckily, this is the Bat family we're dealing with, meaning, of course, there is a secret series of tunnels hidden behind a portrait in Robin's room, meaning that Harley and Ivy have a chance to escape and try and clear Harley's name. Meanwhile, the rest of the party guests decide to split up to look for Harley and Ivy. This means that Joker and Bruce actually get an opportunity to have an uncharacteristically close and soul-bearing conversation in a sauna, the joke being that this Joker is actually much more emotionally mature than Bruce is right now. They actually ever so briefly bond talking over family, and it's the Joker who says that if Bruce is feeling bad about his relationship with his wards right now, then the first step is just apologizing. I mean, hey, after all, what's Damian supposed to think? You went to jail and then as soon as you got out, you started dating Lena Luthor and moved to a completely different city. All of this ends up coming to a major head when, again, in classic parlor mystery fashion, everyone is assembled only for Harley to point a finger at the wrong culprit, only for the actual real dastardly mastermind of all these events to show himself. Yes, that's right, apparently the real killer was none other than Red X, and oh boy, now I get to actually explain the history of Red X. So here's the thing, Red X is actually a 100% original creation of the 2014 Titans animated series. There, Robin had used Red X as an alternate persona to try and get closer to that show's version of Deathstroke. Everyone agreed that was a super awesome episode, the costume is really cool, and Red X basically ended up becoming Boba Fett for an entire generation of kids. Later on, they did a follow-up episode where a mysterious thief actually stole the Red X costume and persona for himself, though we never actually figured out who was under the suit before the show was canceled. Now, just a couple years ago, Red X actually did end up making the canon immigrant jump to the comics, where they basically bungled the story entirely. Now, there were actually multiple different people who used the Red X persona, including Dick himself, and there was a guy who thought that Dick was his father. It was all pretty damn messy, and the book was canceled not long after, and no writer has actually bothered going back. In a way, though, I think it's absolutely brilliant to try and refit Red X to be a Harley villain, because he is kind of the opposite end of that spectrum. Harley was also invented for an animated series before making the jump to the comics, and well, her career has been great. Red X shows up and absolutely wrecks shop, beating up all the heroes and villains alike, though ultimately does force Bruce and Damian to put their tension aside and fight together for once, before it is ultimately revealed that the mysterious Red X is actually none other than Dick Grayson, back from the dead thanks to the Lazarus Pit and out for revenge on Harley, the person who killed him. Damian seems shocked to buy this, even though it should be pretty damn obvious considering he was there when Dick was resurrected at the end of last season. Again, continuity snafus. Harley does her best to defend herself, saying, "Hey man, I was sleep killing. I could have killed anyone. It just happened to be you. It's not like it was personal or anything." Also, Dick's death we clearly didn't learn the whole story of last season. Yes, Harley might have killed him while sleep killing, but she didn't put him in a tree, which is where he ended up. I get the sneaking suspicion there was actually probably supposed to be more to that storyline, but I feel like they just wanted to dispense with it all here and now. Dick's trip to the dark side also doesn't last very long either, as Bruce ends up taking the Joker's advice, apologizing to his son, and reconciling with both Dick and Damian simultaneously. The episode probably could have ended right there, but no, a twist within a twist. Yes, Alfred did indeed fake his death, but moreover than that, he was the real mastermind of these proceedings, having brought Dick Grayson in to become Red X in the first place, which begs about a million questions. The first of which being, why on earth would he do that? Well, he's looking for revenge. No, not on Bruce, who kind of jerked him around last season. That would actually make a lot more sense, given that he went to literally multiple jails because of him. But no, Alfred, once again taking the guise of C-list sidekick the Macaroni, is actually looking to try and get revenge on Harley, Ivy, and the Joker, even invoking events from past seasons like Harley's Parademon attack and Ivy's Jazzapajizza. Which, okay, Alfred wanting revenge on Ivy and the Joker kind of makes a sort of sense, but he had a good relationship with Harley last season. He taught her the bitch method. He was one of the first people to actually accept her into the Bat family. It was actually one of the best and sweetest parts of season 4. But now the show actively wants us to forget all of that. In fact, this episode moves at such a lightning fast pace, I get the strong suspicion that they knew if they ever slowed down for just a second, the rest of the audience would probably take time to think about these things like I am. As for the big finale goes, Alfred juices up with Venom and the entire party has to join forces to try and stop him. The big standout moment here, of course, being that Harley risks life and limb to save Dick from getting his head crushed like a ripe grape, thereby making them even now. Yeah, I might have killed you, but I definitely saved you. Also, the whole water fixture issue, which has been a big subject throughout this entire episode, actually ends up coming in and saving the day as Sean the Shark causes yet another massive flood, which electrocutes Alfred's ankle monitor, in doing so defeating him. Oh, don't worry, Bruce says he won't be in jail long because, again, Bruce can't be without his butler and they're going to need him to clean up the mess he made. Oh, cool, so you instantly undid what you did. What was even the point of this episode then? Perhaps the biggest actual story development happens at the very end of the episode when Lois Lane, who admittedly did very little during all of these events, hires Harley to be her new assistant at the Daily Planet. Why? Because they're having the same nightmares about a skull ship, and because Harley is going absolutely crazy with boredom at home. And yeah, so that was Big Pasta Dinner, an episode that left me probably more conflicted than any episode in this series so far. On one hand, it's funny, I definitely laughed. There's good bits here, some fun and interesting side plots. I didn't even mention Frank the Plant realizing how old he was in plant years. That was a good joke. But it's the characterization and continuity stuff that leaves me really raising an eyebrow. Again, I said early on I can't believe that the same guy who did Kite Man is also show running this season of Harley. Well, let's just say episodes like this certainly remind me. I know Harley is a comedy, but at the end of the day it managed to rise above a lot of similar shows because it paid such attention to characterization and continuity. Crazier still, this episode feels like it's desperately trying to throw a bone to the biggest detractors of season 4. Hey, remember all this stuff you didn't like? Well, we're retroactively getting rid of it now. Even though to do so, we had to burn through an entire episode and we ended up creating several new problems along the way we're probably going to have to fix. The big question is, was it worth it? And for my money, not entirely. My hope is that maybe now that they've addressed some of these complaints, they can move on into the future now. And I hope they do, because I hope episodes like this don't end up becoming a habit. But that'll just about be it for me this week, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, be sure to like, subscribe, and favorite. Leave a comment. It helps me in this crazy YouTuber algorithm game. You can also find me on all the different social media apps, so you always know when a new Harley video is dropping. So until then, everyone, I've been Cape Joel. Bye-bye.